We're not live yet.
Cool.
All right. We are live in the studio today. We've got 3 of the 4 of the crew talking about some sports. For anybody who's watched for the first time, we are the Sportsfans. My name is Kellen Hansen, otherwise known as the Crimson Comet.
My name is Brady Fulmer, otherwise known as Lazy Snake.
And I am Prison Mike.
And we want to welcome not Jason, who is absent today. But it is with good reason. He is on vacation with his family currently, and we hope that he is enjoying his time. He has requested that we try to avoid talking too much crap on him.
That might be hard. Just because
I know.
we like making up. It's not that he's a bad person. There's not much crap to talk on him. We just like making up lies. Is the thing.
I know. Usually what it has to do with is his sports preferences, his favorite teams. We kind of like to get under his skin a little bit. I know he was really excited about Justin Fields' pro day, just knowing that, he personally thinks Justin Fields is just head and shoulders better than Zach Wilson. So I know that that's something that's really important to him. We'll get to that later. But anyways, how's your guys' weekend? How was your guys' weekend? How's your week been so far?
I think we can all answer it about the same. Or at least I can speak for myself. The weekend was awesome. We were all together down in Salt Lake doing some fun stuff. So definitely one of the best weekends I've had in a long time, for sure.
Yeah, the weekend was great. We had a lot of fun activities and things going on. And so far, these first 2 days of school have kind of been a little slow, but we're getting through them.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's kind of interesting because, after the weekend, when we got back, I mean, we'll go into a little bit more detail, but after we got back, we'll just tell you guys right now. So, yeah, we went to Salt Lake on Friday, went to a Jazz game. They played the Grizzlies. Obviously, we'll go into detail on that a little bit more in our NBA segment. Then afterwards, went back to Midway, slept in. Then we went to Sandy, right?
It was Sandy, yeah.
Played a couple hours of mini golf. Went and hung out in Shields for a little bit. Went and played pickleball, and got some sunburns. And then we went and watched the UFC fights at Buffalo Wild Wings. We'll get into that a little bit more. But yeah, no, I kind of felt like I had a hangover at the end of the weekend. Like on Sunday, I was absolutely exhausted. We got back to the apartment, went to church, and then I honestly, I took a 2-hour nap and I was dead. I was dead. But it was a fun weekend. I know I can't speak for everyone, but I know I had a really good time.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyways, we have a lot to talk about. I'm actually really excited for the show because we definitely have no shortage of material to go over. We're going to talk first of all about the NFL and some breaking news. Brady, why don't you get into that?
Yeah, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the NFL extended their season, which they added one more game. So now it is a 17-game regular season, which I'll just voice my opinion really quick. I think that it's awesome. The NFL is definitely one of the most probably the most popular sports league here in America. And I feel like one more game is one more game that you get to watch of your favorite team play. So it's an awesome thing in my opinion.
Yeah. Mike, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Brady. One thing I do think I read, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is that, and I like this adjustment, is instead of having 4 preseason games, they're just dropping it down to 3. So that way they don't extend the season another week or have to make it so teams don't have a bye week, which I think is also a genius idea because obviously the pre-season games are important. It allows players to get back in shape. But I feel like 4 games, a month of preseason is a tiny bit long. So them substituting getting rid of one of those pre-games and putting in an actual actual game in the season, I think was a genius plan.
Yeah. Something that's really interesting is a lot of players have actually voiced their opinions on the matter, and a lot of them are really upset with it. I know Alvin Kamara tweeted that he thought it was dumb as heck. And I can kind of see where he's coming from. I mean, obviously, I think near the end of the season, a lot of times teams that have already clinched the playoff the last week or two will kind of, they'll kind of cupcake the last game. They don't really start their starters. They don't want to get people injured for the playoffs. It's really not that big of a deal. But I will say this. If you're a fringe team, having an extra week is going to be huge. Like, that's going to be massive. So, for example, last year, as an Arizona Cardinals fan last season, we finished the year at 8-8, and we had the same record as the Bears. And if we would have had another week to play, we could have still made it in the playoffs potentially. And that's what would have been at stake that last week. But because of, the fact that we lost that last game, we didn't end up making the playoffs. And I believe the Rams we're like in a similar situation. It was like between the Rams, the Bears, and the Cardinals. That 17th game is going to make things really interesting. And for fans, it's going to be another week to watch football. I really like what Mike who brought up the preseason rule where they were only going to be doing the 3-game preseason. I really like that. I think that the preseason was too long anyways. It's really hard for me to care about that stuff. But I understand why some of the players are upset. But regardless of that, they have to understand that the people signing their checks are trying to find ways to maximize the profits in the league. And that kind of leads into our next topic, which is another way to maximize profits in the leagues. Mike, why don't you bring that topic up for us?
Yeah, so I believe, I didn't read this article, but in the NFL for next season, they're planning on having the NFL games at full capacity. So they're going to be filling stadiums. And obviously this past year, we missed out on having hardly anyone in the stadiums. There was very limited attendance at only a few of the stadiums. So that's a big change, going from almost no one to a lot of fans to full capacity. And so I guess, do you guys have any thoughts about what this will do for the NFL, or if there's going to be problems with COVID or different things like that?
Brady?
Yeah, so I think it's awesome. I think Roger Goodell is taking a little page out of Dana White's book with the full capacity. Obviously, Dana White's the first one to try to go back to full capacity since this COVID thing happened. And overall, I kind of think that Roger Goodell is an idiot. I don't like much of what he does, but I definitely like this move by Roger Goodell. And I believe what he said is he hopes to have full capacity. So I guess right now there's no set plans that it's going to be full capacity, but he's hoping, and that's the direction they're going to try to move if things go well. And I think I can speak for just about everyone that we want the world to get back to normal. And I really hope that this can happen during the football season.
Yeah. And here's my thoughts behind it. I agree with you, Brady. I wouldn't say Roger Goodell is a guy that I really am interested in having lunch with. But I have to say that I really like the approach that he's taking. The fact of the matter is that the NFL has been a huge part of the mass vaccination that's taking place in the country. And look, here's what I think, and I don't like to be political, obviously, and I don't want to be political, but if we have a vaccine out and if people are getting it and if it's available to the public, I think that we should be able to go back to normal. And I think as fans of sports, we should have the opportunity to go back into the stadiums and watch these games. And I honestly think, look, if I'm Roger Goodell, I'm thinking, holy cow, I'm going to make so much money. There are going to be so many sold-out games this year because of this. You guys know for a fact that avid fans are going to take any opportunity that they have to go to an NFL game next season because of it. As long as they take the right precautions where maybe they'll require players or fans to wear masks. Obviously, if it's full capacity, social distancing really isn't realistic. But if you can have them wear masks, and then make sure that they don't have COVID symptoms as they come to the stadium. I just think that it's going to be a huge profit builder for the NFL, and a lot of these franchises are going to make a lot of money in attendance this season. What about you, Mike? What do you think?
Yeah, so pretty much I agree with you guys. I think one benefit, especially of the NFL, not every stadium, but most of the stadiums are outside. They're outdoors. So that doesn't automatically like improve the things with the spread of COVID, but I think being outdoors helps it a lot. And I'm with both of you. We all just want things back to normal. Going to the Jazz game was awesome, and that wasn't even at full capacity. And there was some fun moments just being in the crowd. So to think that the NFL could have full capacity just makes the game seem a lot more exciting, and it's something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is like I think that it just is going to make this season so special. It'd almost be like, I don't know, like if I remember hearing about like when the MLB went on strike, right? And then when it came back, it like a whole season was canceled. I think it was back in the 90s. And then when it came back, like baseball exploded again. And I think it's going to be a really similar situation. I think that, obviously we had a season last year, but with the lack of fans, I think that it's just going to bring a whole new energy to the game. The players are going to appreciate it. The fans are going to appreciate it. And obviously Roger Goodell and some of his buddies are going to have very full pockets. Like we're talking prison Mike Rich when it
offshore accounts
to next season. Offshore accounts, baby. I love it. But yeah, that's kind of some of the big news. And then this is some NFL news that it's just interesting because it comes to the draft. And I kind of wish Jason was here to talk about this because Jason has a very strong allegiance to BYU. And so this shouldn't have anything to do with BYU, but I know if Jason was here, if Jason was here, he would be more than willing to talk about BYU. So today, quarterback Justin Fields from Ohio State did his pro day, and he actually is right now projected by a lot of people as the third quarterback to be taken in the draft. Mel Kiper actually has him as his number 2 quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence. At this point, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number 1 pick. Like, there's really no argument. He has all the intangibles. He has the track record and all the prestige. But Justin Fields is not that far behind. We're talking about a guy who's played in a national championship, has played in 2 college football playoffs, been a Heisman finalist, and he's thrown up some crazy stats. But recently, obviously, his draft stock actually sank a little bit. A lot of that had to do with the emergence of Zach Wilson from BYU. That's why Jason would be pooping his pants right now if he was here. The name of Zach Wilson just makes Jason poop his pants a little bit every time. But Justin Fields actually had his pro day today, and he, unlike Zach Wilson, his pro day, who, by the way, Zach Wilson had a phenomenal pro day. Did you guys see the highlights on that?
Yeah, Zach Wilson looked amazing.
He's proven that he can sling the ball. But Justin Fields, who is a 6'3", 228-pound quarterback, ran a 4.44 second 40, which is as fast as Taysom Hill, by the way.
Wow.
The second fastest quarterback in a combine. The only faster was RG3, ran a 4.41. But not only did he, show his athletic ability, but he he threw the ball a little bit, and he threw some absolute bombs, some absolute beauties. So I guess my question for you guys is, first of all, your reaction to his pro day, and second of all, is there any chance that we see the Jets pick up Justin Fields instead of Zach Wilson? We've been able to see both of their pro days and their combines. We've been able to see what they can do. What are you guys' thoughts as to what will happen come NFL draft time. Why don't we start off with Prison Mike?
All right. So I haven't watched all of Justin Fields' highlights from his pro day. I did see his 40, and that was impressive, but I didn't get to watch all of the throws. And I feel like we've already on the show, we've compared Justin Fields and Zach Wilson, and I think that they're both phenomenal quarterbacks. They both have strengths. I feel like they have similar strengths, and there's not, as far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot of weaknesses in their passing game. One thing that, as we've discussed this more and more, I feel like they both had such phenomenal pro days that you can practically say they're about on the same level, both Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. And so me personally, if I were the Jets with the number 2 pick, I would take Justin Fields. And that's nothing against Zach Wilson. I just feel like Justin Fields has played against better competition and has been in some bigger moments than Zach Wilson. And will that affect if he's better or not than Zach Wilson? I don't know. Like, Zach Wilson could be an absolute monster in the NFL, and Justin Fields could just be an okay player who starts for a few seasons and then kind of just becomes a backup. I don't know what will happen, but personally, I think where Justin Fields has played against, I believe, better competition, has been in the college football playoffs and been in big moments. I think I would take him over Zach Wilson at this point.
Yeah. Brady?
So I think I'm going to make Jason pretty happy with this answer. But watching their pro days, I feel like they were really similar. Obviously, Justin Fields ran the 40, and I feel like that was the highlight of his pro day. He did make some amazing passes, but I think it was definitely his 40 time because it astounded everyone. Watching him make those throws, I felt like he made throws that were very similar to the ones Zach Wilson made, as far as maybe like across his body and down the field. I will say, though, that watching both quarterbacks make the throws, and I don't know how much this accounts for, but I feel like Zach Wilson made it look a lot easier making those throws, and it just looked a lot more natural and easy with Zach Wilson. He was just kind of flinging it, and it looked like Justin Fields was having to put just about everything into it to make those throws. So I think that accounts for something. And I'm not saying that Zach Wilson has a stronger arm than Justin Fields, but he definitely made those throws look a lot easier than Justin Fields did. So after comparing both their pro days, and in the past, I was always kind of on the Justin Fields side, saying I'd take him, but I'm feeling Zach Wilson now if I'm the Jets. I feel like I really liked what I saw out of Zach Wilson's pro day, and I feel like I liked it a bit more than Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I tend to agree with – you guys both brought up some amazing points because, first of all, I don't think that either of these quarterbacks are going to have bad NFL careers. I don't think either of these guys are busts. I think both of them have the potential to be really solid NFL starters. I think this is a great quarterback class. I actually think Mac Jones from Alabama is another guy that's going to be able to perform at the NFL level. But what I think it comes down to is exactly what Brady said, just the effortlessness that Zach Wilson showed during his pro day. It seemed like he was making these throws with so much ease, and he wasn't throwing – it felt like, I don't know, after watching Zach Wilson and after watching Justin Fields, it felt like Justin Fields was trying really hard to make a point. And I feel like his point was, I'm better than Zach Wilson. And he didn't say it explicitly, but with some of the throws he was making, like you could tell, man, this kind of seems like he's just kind of trying to copy what Zach Wilson did in his pro day with his throws. And like Brady said, Zach Wilson just did it with so much ease and so much poise. That being said, if I was Justin Fields, I would have no problem going number 3 rather than number 2, because I would much rather be in the 49ers system than the Jets system. I think that the 49ers the reason they moved up, so there was kind of a blockbuster trade where over the weekend where the 49ers now have the number 3 pick overall. I think that they're so confident in both those guys. The 49ers are so confident in both Fields and Wilson that they don't really care who the Jets take. I think they've decided if Zach Wilson goes to the Jets, then they're more than happy to have Justin Fields. for, like Mike said, the intangibles, the physical freak that he is. A 4.4440 at 230 pounds. He's got an absolute cannon. He's won against the best competition in the country. So I think they'd be happy with him. But I also think that they see Zach Wilson for his football IQ, his accuracy, how he's able to read coverages. So I just think that those two are so close when it comes to comparing them, that it's one of those situations where the Jets and the 49ers are both going to be happy on draft night, in my opinion. If it comes down to it, and trying to put my BYU bias aside, there are certain throws that I've seen Zach Wilson make that Justin Fields has not made. And there are certain attributes when it comes to accuracy and reading coverages that Justin Fields has given me a little bit of concern on, and Zach Wilson has proven to me that, through watching film, that he can make those plays. Either way, I think both of these guys are going to be good NFL quarterbacks. I think your top three quarterbacks in this draft are going to go down as, I think this draft is going to go down as one of the most talented quarterback groups we've ever seen.
I agree. I completely agree with just about everything you said.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, we are actually going to move on from NFL, jump over to NBA. Brady, why don't you bring up this subject?
Yes. So moving on to NBA. And we've seen a lot of pretty big trades and just free agent signings recently. And I feel like one of the biggest ones, which we're going to talk about, is Andre Drummond signing with the Lakers. And Mike and I have talked about it quite a bit. And I think I feel like if you were a free agent and you were any good this year, you either signed with the Nets or the Lakers. That's just kind of how it is. But I honestly feel like this is a really good pickup for the Lakers. I feel like they have Anthony Davis, who plays that 4 role, kind of more outside and can space the floor. And the beauty about Andre Drummond is he's a dominant center who does not need the ball. In fact, I don't think he really wants the ball inside. He's good to get offensive rebounds, maybe get a putback if it's easy, or just kick it out. But he's going to rebound, he's going to block, and he's just going to kind of be that presence in the paint. And I feel like that's exactly what the Lakers need, and that's what Marc Gasol, he was giving you a little bit of that. He's a good defensive player, but he's not near as dominant or just big in the paint as Andre Drummond is. So I love this pickup by the Lakers. What do you think, Mike?
So, I agree with that. And earlier in the year, on this podcast, we talked a little bit about Andre Drummond, and I think I actually kind of hated on him a little bit, said that he was pretty much done and like all of this stuff. But as I thought about it a little more, he is younger than what I thought he was. He still has some years left in him. And where he was on the Cavs, recently the Cavs have had probably 5 or 6 centers on their team. Like I don't know what they were thinking, but they signed a bunch of centers just on the Cavs. And I believe that's part of the reason why Andre Drummond got looked over a lot, because he's not a huge offensive presence. Like Brady said, he doesn't demand the ball, but he's very solid defensively, and he's going to be crashing the boards to get defensive and offensive rebounds. And because of how he played, I think he kind of got lost in the Cavs organization because they're bad and they have a lot of different centers and things like that. And so I agree with Brady. I feel like he's a really good pickup for the Lakers. He's going to complement Anthony Davis and LeBron. And I think he's better than Marc Gasol. I don't think Marc Gasol has been very good this year. So that was a good pickup for the Lakers.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of your guys' assessments. I will say this. That's a good pickup for the Lakers if LeBron and Anthony Davis get healthy, which, I'm optimistic they will, because if you put LeBron and Anthony Davis in this lineup with Drummond, yeah, this was a home run in terms of how valuable Andre Drummond can be to this team. I mean, he's one of those guys. He kind of reminds me of Ben Wallace. Do you guys remember Ben Wallace?
Oh yeah,
he's
big afro.
The Pistons. Big afro, man. And the thing I like about him, is he understands his role and he executes his role. So I think, once LeBron and Anthony Davis get healthy, we're going to see that Andre Drummond is going to be a huge asset for the Lakers. But right now, looking at the Lakers depth chart, they've got Dennis Schroeder, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma, Markieff Morris, and Andre Drummond. Without LeBron and Anthony Davis in the lineup, this is not a championship level team. This isn't even really a playoff winning team. I mean, maybe a playoff reaching, maybe, but not a playoff winning team. So I mean, a lot of it hinges on how LeBron and Anthony Davis perform. But like I said, I'm optimistic that the Lakers are going to be fine. I think LeBron and Anthony Davis will be well rested when they get back. And I really love this move. I just think it's really interesting. You see what the Nets did in the offseason or during the trade deadline, and you see what the Lakers did, and you get the feeling that those two teams are pretty optimistic that it's going to be them in the finals. Seems like the Nets are building up a super team to try to take down the Lakers, and the Lakers are building up a super team to try to take down the Nets. And I'll tell you what, if everybody on those rosters gets healthy, if Kevin Durant gets healthy, if LeBron gets healthy, if Anthony Davis gets healthy, that is going to be an incredible finals. Because as a Jazz fan, I'm optimistic that the Jazz will be able to, I don't know, hopefully do something. But that would be much watched TV if it was the Nets Lakers.
The thing I'm hanging on to is knowing that the Nets are going to suck here in like 3 years because they're not going to be able to afford to pay any of those guys, and they're going to have traded everything away.
I know. And that's the thing. It's like you got to sell out sometimes.
Yeah, and then if it doesn't pay off, you're in a world of trouble. And I am hoping and praying it doesn't pay off for the Nets and the Lakers. I feel like Mike and I were actually talking about this the other day. The thing that makes the Jazz so dope and so easy to cheer for is they did it kind of the old-fashioned way of just building up. They made a few trades here and there, like for Conley and Clarkson, but none big like the Lakers and Nets have done. They've just kind of built everyone from the ground up, and they're still the number one team in the power rankings. So I feel like you got to cheer for them if you're not a fan of the Nets or the Lakers.
Well, and I feel like people are so eager to sleep on the Jazz. And I understand, like, it's easy to want to say, all right, like, look, the Lakers have all this superpower, and the Nets have all this talent, but the Jazz have all this chemistry. Like, I'm not sleeping on the Jazz. I wouldn't favor the Jazz in a series against the Lakers, but I would not be surprised to see that series go 7 games. Or 6 games at least. So, go ahead, Mike.
And recently, obviously you guys know I'm not a huge Jazz fan. I cheer for them. They're a close team and they're fun to watch. But I was talking with Brady about this the other day. I believe Doc Rivers says that in the West it's still the Lakers and the Clippers who you have to worry about. And I don't think the Jazz care a whole lot that they're being disrespected and not mentioned, but just hearing that almost makes me cheer for the Jazz more. It makes me want them to make it to the finals because I just don't like that they keep saying the Lakers and the Clippers, that they just keep involving those two teams, even though there's injuries. And the Clippers, the Jazz have looked good all season. I believe they beat the Clippers once, and the Clippers beat them once. So I don't know. It makes you want to root for the Jazz even more with everyone saying that they're not going to do anything in the playoffs. It's only going to be the Clippers and the Lakers out of the West.
Yeah. Well, one thing that people need to realize is that the Jazz have the best point differential statistics in the NBA right now. They have a plus 9.4 point differential against their opponents. The next closest is the Clippers with a 6.6. So the fact that the Jazz are averaging a 9-point victory every game, almost a 9.5-point victory every game, really goes to show how dangerous this team is because they are so solid defensively, yet they're so solid offensively. They have so many guys that can score the ball in so many different ways. So as a Jazz fan, it's like giving me hope that while I'm not saying they're going to win the finals, I just feel like they are a legitimate contender for at least that Western Conference.
Yep.
We're going to actually talk about the Jazz because, you know, I know a lot of people haven't had an opportunity to go to a sports game, a professional sports game in a long time. I hadn't had the opportunity. And this last Saturday, we had the opportunity to go to Salt Lake and watch the Jazz play the Grizzlies, as we mentioned earlier. And I just kind of want our viewers to have an idea and to get a chance to hear about what the experience was like during COVID, if it was any different, how the atmosphere was, how were the amenities, you know, did it surprise you? Did you enjoy it? Were there things you didn't like? Were there things you did like? We'll start off with Brady.
All right. So I will say the one thing that I didn't like is Mike was a public nuisance while we were at the game, and he actually got thrown out of there. It was wild. He just like was attacking people and wouldn't leave people alone, invading their space. Mike kind of made the whole experience crappy. No,
he actually went up behind the guy and stole his nachos just right out of his hand. And the guy was like, "Dude, why'd you steal my nachos?" And he's like, "Because I wanted to."
I'm Prison Mike.
Mike. Yes, I'm sorry.
So that's what I didn't really like about the game. It was kind of stressful trying to keep an eye on him the whole time. But no, the game was awesome. It was a tiny different with COVID. Obviously, the biggest difference was the number of fans. A lot of seats being empty. But at the same time, I feel like it didn't feel entirely different. Getting in, I was worried about getting into the arena. I thought they would have to like take our temperature and it was going to be a big long process. But all that happened is the guy asked us if we had any symptoms. We said no, and then it was just normal like usual. And it seemed, I honestly was a lot more normal than I expected. I don't know about you guys, but I liked it.
Mike?
My favorite part is when I stole the Bears costume and was on the floor dancing.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I convinced him to come into a dark alleyway, and I knocked him out and stole his
What happened to the Bears? The Bears' body? Like, did the cops find it, or did you hide it?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I got out of town quick. No, that would have been fun, but sadly, I didn't get to wear the bear costume. So I'm a lot with Brady. I felt like there was a decent amount of people there. It was fun, especially there towards the end of the game when it got a little bit tighter. You could feel that everyone was excited. People were standing up. There was lots of cheering. It was a good time. One of the things I didn't like, and they kind of had to do this, but they still piped in noise. And kind of by the end of it, I was a little bit annoyed of listening to artificial noise. It was really loud and got annoying. And I know there wasn't enough fans to make a ton of noise, but I was, especially there towards the end, I feel like they should have turned the noise off and just let it be the fans.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not going to lie. There was actually some aspects that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed not feeling crowded at the Jazz game. Like, I like being able to – it took us – usually when you enter the stadium with a normal capacity crowd, it seems like it takes a while to get to your seats. Long lines and concessions. There were like no lines, and it was so easy to navigate around the arena. And obviously that's going to go away with full capacity crowds, as it should. But that was actually really enjoyable from my perspective. And then I agree with Mike in terms of piping in sound, because while it wouldn't have been super loud, like mega loud, there was several thousand people in attendance, and I do think that it would have made a difference. And the thing is it seemed like because a lot of people, it was probably their first game back, there was a lot of excitement in the arena. Like, you could feel like a sense of, oh, it's so good to be back. It's so good to be able to be a part of this. And so I almost feel like piping and noise wasn't really necessary. Would there have been some quiet moments? Probably. But I feel like during the exciting moments, there still would have been enough of an ovation for the players to feel it. And then, yeah, near the end when everybody got excited and the game tightened, yeah, you could feel the electricity in the air from all the fans. And so I think it's probably like how a Minnesota Timberwolves game would be with a normal capacity crowd if there wasn't COVID restrictions. But I will say this. Right now, if you go on Vivint Arena seats, you'll be able to find tickets that are actually very reasonably priced. And for anybody that's watching that has desires to go to a Jazz game or any NBA game where they allow fans, I would recommend it. Like if it's really important to you, if you're willing to spend, and it really was, we were able to find affordable tickets. I would recommend going because it's an awesome experience, and it was something that I feel like I needed because I haven't been able to be a part of that in a while.
I agree. I would say, especially if you're a person, because I know a lot of people, I'm like this in a way, but a lot of people really like basketball. They really like the Jazz, but they are not a fan of crowds at all. But now is a perfect time because, like Kellen said, you never feel crowded. You can walk through the halls, and there's people, but not near what it is. So if you don't like crowds, it is the perfect year for you to go.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. We're going to actually move on. We're going to talk some college basketball. Obviously, there's been some crazy stuff with guys, this tournament is absolutely bonkers.
Crazy.
This tournament's absolutely nuts. Right now, we're going to actually check the bracket. And we can't really make predictions right now because the Elite Eight is actually like in progress. But we're gonna talk about some of the games that happened. We're gonna talk about the Sweet 16 in particular, and then we'll get into the Elite Eight. Why don't we talk a little bit of Sweet 16? Gonzaga Creighton. Gonzaga beat Creighton 83-65. They've won every game in the tournament by at least 16 points as of right now. And then USC beat Oregon 82-68. Looked pretty dominant in that matchup. Michigan beat Florida State 76-58. UCLA beat Alabama 88-78. Houston beat Syracuse 62-46. Oregon State beat Loyola Chicago 65-58. Baylor beat Villanova 62-51. Arkansas beat Oral Roberts 72-70. We actually got a chance to watch the ending of that game at Buffalo Wild Wings. Can I just hear your guys' thoughts on Oral Roberts and their run? How impressed have you been by that? And really, what does that show you guys in terms of how March Madness works? Mike, why don't you go first?
So it was obviously awesome. I mean, they beat the team I had winning, so I have a little bit of hard feelings against them. But it's always cool to see a team that you've never even heard of before do good. One thing that I will say, though, it doesn't happen that often, so enjoy it while it does. I mean, this is only the second time in history that a number 15 seed has made it to the Sweet 16. The last team to do it was Florida Gulf Coast, and they were so much fun to watch when they got there. So I guess if a 15 seed ever makes it that far, just enjoy the games while you can because it does not happen very often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think that
Brady, Brady.
All right. I think that a lot of what Mike said, it's really awesome, but I think it just shows how dope March Madness is and why March Madness is probably the greatest sporting event that happens in the year because you never know what's going to happen. I feel like most years there's some Cinderella story. They never seem to go too far, but there are always upsets, and that's what people want to see is that these underdog teams making it a long ways. And Oral Roberts, I feel like was just about as fun a team to watch this year in the tournament. So a little disappointed that they lost, but their run was amazing.
Yeah. No, I agree. Oral Roberts. That's the thing I love about March Madness is the fact that a team like Oral Roberts can, beat Ohio State and Florida and lose to 2 against Arkansas. I mean, they were a game away from playing in the Elite Eight, and that was absolutely amazing to me. Just to report some of the Elite Eight scores, Baylor beat Arkansas 81-72. What are your guys' thoughts about Baylor as they get ready to play in the Final Four? Oh, and by the way, and let me just say this real quick. Houston beat Oregon State 67-61. Big surprise, Oregon State making it that far. But what are your guys' thoughts, Baylor and Houston in the Final Four? Brady, why don't you go first?
I think that Baylor is – I definitely underrated Baylor. I know that Jason was really high on them, and I underrated them, but they look super good. I feel like they've been as dominant a team other than Gonzaga in this year's tournament. One thing I will say, and this is kind of going a different direction, but I got to put this out there, is the Baylor's girls team got completely robbed, and I'm still kind of bitter about it against UConn. So both Baylors would be in the Final Four in their respective tournaments because that girl got hacked on the last second shot, and they didn't call it.
Which foul? Which foul?
What's
the
that?
Girl hitting her in the head or the girl hitting her elbow? She was fouled twice on that play.
I know. She got wrecked, and they were only down by 1.
She got like a forearm to the forehead, and the other girl hit her elbow, her shooting elbow.
That made me mad because UConn, I don't like teams that are too dominant, and UConn in girls basketball is as dominant as they come. I was hoping UConn would get knocked off, but those refs screwed Baylor out of a win.
Big time. Absolutely. Mike, what are your thoughts about
Baylor? So, sadly, I picked Houston to lose in the first round, and they made it to the Final Four. So, gosh darn it, Houston, why'd you have to do that to me? But it will be an exciting game. I'm with Brady as well. I think I underestimated Baylor a tiny bit. I knew they were good, but they are playing at a completely different level right now. There's a lot of comparison. One of their players, his last name is Mitchell, and he wears number 45. And there's a lot of people who are saying jokingly that they're asking Donovan Mitchell if he's suiting up for Baylor and changing his hair because Mitchell for Baylor is tearing it up right now. I can't remember his first name. It starts with a D as well.
I think it's Damian.
Damian?
I think so.
Okay, something like that. And so he's been a lot of fun to watch. Baylor looks really good. And so is Houston as well. They've looked pretty dominant. They're both very aggressive defensively and slashers. So that should be I really like games where they're fast paced with a lot of slashing to the basket. So it should be a fun game to watch.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I have to agree with Brady. I actually picked look, I in one of my brackets I have Baylor going to the Final Four. I think Baylor is a really good team. I don't know why I didn't think that they were going to make it through. I looked at that side of the bracket and I was like, okay, Texas Tech impressed me. I thought Villanova was tough. Obviously, I'm a North Carolina fan. One of my brackets, I had North Carolina beating Baylor. But I just guess I didn't really consider them to be as much of a threat as they are. Watching Houston play, I underestimated Houston too. I mean, Houston, they're tough, and they're about as good as anybody I've seen this year. So I am going to pick Baylor. I think Baylor's, going to have an opportunity to make it to the national championship. But they are going to have to face the winner of either Gonzaga. Well, so Gonzaga actually made it to the Final Four today. They beat UFC 85-66. Like I said, closest game they've had at this tournament was 16 points. They've absolutely bulldozed their way through. They'll play the winner of Michigan, Michigan UCLA. But first of all, Brady, how impressed have you been with Gonzaga this tournament?
Oh, super impressed. They are looking every bit as good as they did during their regular season, which I didn't think they could maintain during this tournament, but they've been able to do that. It blows my mind, and I know this is kind of going back to the regular season as well, but they've only had one game where it was inside of a 10-point loss this whole season. So they've just completely dominated everyone, and that has carried into the tournament. Like Kellen said a while ago, I think their closest game was, like 16 points so far in this tournament?
Yes.
Which is completely unbelievable. Kellen and I were actually talking right before we started this, but Gonzaga is just incredibly deep. They just have so many guys who can kill you. I feel like they have a lot of guys who are going to be pretty good in the NBA who are going to make that transfer. So they're as complete a team as just about I've ever seen in college basketball, which I don't really want them to win, but I think they're going to.
Mike, what are your thoughts?
So before I get to Gonzaga, I do want to say I think one of the best games of the tournament so far was UCLA Alabama that happened on Sunday. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I felt like that was a phenomenal game between those two teams. And sadly, Alabama lost. I was kind of rooting for them to win that game. Roll Tide, but they lost to UCLA. So that was a great game, went into overtime. But as far as Gonzaga, they're pretty much I agree with Brady. I don't think there's a whole lot to say. I thought that USC would maybe give them a run for their money, but watching the game, at the beginning of the game, USC just looked terrible. And Gonzaga looks great offensively, but they also were really dominant defensively. So it'll be hard for anyone to beat them, but we'll see what happens. I'm definitely rooting against Gonzaga.
Yeah. Well, and right now, here's the interesting thing is UCLA is actually leading Michigan 27-23 at the half. This is an 11 seed, and I'll tell you what, as a BYU fan, I feel a lot better about losing to UCLA because I think this UCLA team it's interesting because like in the regular season, it's not like they were that phenomenal. I mean, they had to do a play-in game to even get to play in the round of 64. But if you look at this team, they're kind of built for like tournament play because their style of play is really quick. They have a lot of weapons offensively, and then they've got some dudes that are pretty tough defensively. So they've had a great tournament, and they could. I mean, it's not over, but there's a real possibility UCLA could make the Final Four as an 11 seed and play Gonzaga. I will say this though: whether it's Michigan or whether it's UCLA playing Gonzaga, I don't think it really matters. Because I see Gonzaga winning that game pretty easily by double digits, too. Like, I think Gonzaga could very well win every game in this tournament, except maybe against Baylor by double digits. But I'm so impressed with this Gonzaga team. I think Mark Few has done an amazing job of, assembling a squad that has great team chemistry. And the thing that's interesting, though, is I think the only freshman that starts on their team is Suggs, right?
Mm-hmm.
That just goes to show why Gonzaga is so dominant. So Gonzaga reaches another Final Four. This is, I think, the third time Mark Few's made a Final Four as a head coach, and I'm really impressed with what he's done there. Gonzaga will be playing the winner of that game. The Final Four will be on April 13th. So we're gonna have to wait a little bit for that one, and then
It should be before that. It should be this Saturday.
No, that's what it says on the ESPN. It said Indianapolis, Indiana Final Four will be April 3rd. Yeah, you're right. I read that wrong. It will be April 3rd. I was like, that's such a long wait. I was
dang, we're gonna have to wait a long time.
and then April 5th will be the national championship. Really excited for those games. Obviously, we'll be doing previews on the Final Four. We'll make a big deal out of it. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about college basketball-wise, anything that's happened? We got to crap on the refs a little bit. I like crap on the refs. We're going to talk some UFC. Oh, guys. My love for UFC, I'm not going to lie, like, and I can say this now, UFC 259, for me personally, was kind of a letdown
Yeah.
because I was expecting fireworks, and that's not what happened. And UFC 260 was everything that I wanted UFC 259 to be and more. And I just want to talk about 3 of the fights that happened. And we're going to start off with the Sean O'Malley Thomas Almeida fight. And I want to hear you guys' reaction to that fight. We'll start off with Brady.
Yeah. So Sean O'Malley was completely dominant in that fight. And I know a lot of people were counting him out. I was kind of one of those people. I thought that he was a little too overhyped. But then watching that fight, he ended up thinking that he finished the guy in, I believe it was the first round, and then didn't get on top of him. The guy ended up getting up, and then he was able to finish him later in, was it the second round? Or early third?
He finished him in the third. It was in the third.
Yeah, early in the third round, he was able to finish him. So I'm totally on the Sean O'Malley hype train now. I understand why people love watching that guy fight so much. He's just so fun to watch, and he's awesome.
Mike?
Until he gets a normal hair color, I'm not going to root for him.
High and tight.
High
You
and
don't
tight.
like the rainbow combo?
I don't really like the rainbow combo. But no, he was impressive. Did good, I thought, on his fighting. So we'll see if he climbs up in the rankings a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, here's my thing is I was really hyped about Sean O'Malley in his last fight that he lost to Cheeto Verez or something, I think. And he ended up disappointing me. It was an injury. But I realized, like, going in this fight, I remember saying, like, look, he has to win this fight or else, you know, he's kind of going to become a nobody. No one's going to remember him. And I'll tell you what, the reason why people like this kid so much and why he has so much hype is because the way he fights, man. That style is so fun to watch. He's a phenomenal striker. The way he's able to break down his opponents and the fact that he does so many spins. I've never seen a fighter do that many spinning kicks. Like, he was doing spinning back fists. He was doing spinning kicks. He landed some of them. He had a couple hits that, you know, looked like they were walk-off knockouts. That first one, I'm surprised that Thomas Almeida actually was able to keep fighting. I think, you know, O'Malley could have finished him there, but yeah, that walk-off that he had to end the fight in the third round, yeah, that was impressive. He was a lot of fun to watch. Next fight, the co-main event, was against the number 7th ranked Vicente Luque, and then obviously former welterweight champion Tyron Woodley. Mike, what was your reaction to that fight?
The Woodley one?
Yes.
I don't know if I remember a whole lot. I'm pretty sure Woodley lost, didn't he?
He did lose.
Yes, he did.
He got knocked out really fast, I feel like. I can't remember.
Oh, he got submitted, but yeah.
Okay, he got submitted. That was a really fast fight, and I was kind of surprised that because he was ranked decently high, and I believe the other guy wasn't even ranked, and yeah, he got whooped.
Yeah, Brady.
Yeah, I believe that fight won fight of the night that night, or it was one of those that was up there, and it was fight of the night. Yeah, so. Yeah, that was incredible. I feel like you got to put a lot of respect on Luque's name. He was number 7, like you mentioned, going into that, and he was able to beat Tyron Woodley, who's a tough guy to beat. Obviously, he was the champion at one point. So I'm really pumped to see what happens with Luque going forward and see how far he can climb up the rankings.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I love this welterweight division. There's so many tough guys. I mean, we got Kamaru Usman, who's obviously on top. You got Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal, and now you got Vicente Luque that you can throw right in that mix because he was as impressive as I've seen in that division against Tyron Woodley. I thought he was going to knock Woodley out. Woodley was out there looking like he was dancing at the Cokeville prom to Cotton Eye Joe or Footloose, but ended up getting the submission in the first round. Now we're going to talk about the main card, the championship, the main event. I know Brady's having a hard time with this one. So Stipe Miocic was defending his heavyweight title against Francis Ngannou. This was the second time they fought. Brady, why don't you tell us what happened?
Yeah. So Francis Ngannou may be the scariest guy on planet Earth. And
Maybe.
He is the scariest guy. I'm sorry.
After
Mike. I'd like to see Mike fight Francis Ngannou, but
yes.
No, Francis Ngannou just pretty much dominated Stipe the whole time. Stipe was able to make it through round 1, which I think was an accomplishment in itself right now. But then round 2, Stipe took a couple of shots that I think it would have sent anyone in the UFC to the ground. I don't think anyone could have withstood those shots that Stipe took, and he was knocked just straight cold. And I feel like you don't see a guy get knocked unconscious like as violently or fall as hard as Stipe did in that fight very often. So as bad as I felt for Stipe, because Stipe is probably my favorite fighter in the UFC, it was incredible. And that, as bad as it sounds, that's ultimately what you want to see watching UFC, is watch these big dudes just deal these massive blows. So props to Francis Ngannou. As of right now, I don't know if anyone can beat him if he fights like he did on Saturday night.
Yeah. Mike, what were your thoughts?
Pretty much along the same lines as Brady. I feel bad for Stipe. I mean, that guy probably is still wondering where he's at and like what planet he's on. He got hit so hard. But
I think he was kind of wondering that before the fight.
Yeah, just watching him before the fight, I just feel like Stipe was super nervous. And then after just one hit, it seemed like he was just trying to dance around the ring and survive. And so Francis Ngannou controlled the whole fight. I don't even feel like Stipe landed any significant blows to Francis Ngannou. He tried to take him down and he couldn't. So it was a really good fight. And I agree with Brady. I don't think we're going to see anyone beat Francis Ngannou for a while if he keeps fighting like he did.
So if I'm being honest, watching Stipe fight, like I was cheering for Stipe because I just think he's an awesome dude. Like I really like, what type of ambassador he is for the UFC, and I like his style of fighting. He's beaten some great dudes. But it's so easy for me to root for Ngannou now. Like now that Ngannou is the champ, it's really easy for me to root for him because he is a really humble guy. He comes from really humble beginnings, and he's worked his tail off to get to where he's at. And then just watching that fight, everybody knows that he has this crazy power and this crazy strength and athleticism, but the fact is I don't think anybody realized how hard this guy works, and it showed in this fight. The fact that he was able to, basically stun Stipe. Stipe was basically standing there stagnant. He wasn't throwing anything because he was so afraid of Ngannou's power. And the only opportunity, there was one point in the match, and when Stipe went to take down Ngannou, I remember saying, "Oh, this is big." And I thought Stipe was going to take him down, and he didn't. Ngannou not only stuffed it, he took Stipe down, and he started a ground and pound that stunned Stipe. And that's when I knew, oh, man, this fight is not going to go Stipe's way. Like, Ngannou will win this fight. Because if he can defend wrestlers, if he can fight against wrestlers and defend the takedown, this guy's going to be really hard to beat. Like, really hard. And so now that, and obviously the knockout was spectacular. Stipe was out cold. Stipe was out cold. But now everyone's talking about John Jones. That's the obvious matchup. That's what the UFC wants. And we'll get into this probably on another episode and when we have more time to talk about it. But I'll tell you one thing. I am an Ngannou fan. Like I even call me a bandwagon fan. I love the way this guy fights, and I'm looking forward to watching him fight. I want him to fight Man, like there's certain fighters, like when I think of like Sean O'Malley and Ngannou, I wish that they would fight every month. But
Yeah.
no, I loved watching it, and I'm really excited for what the UFC has coming up for them. So we're short on time, so we're gonna wrap up the show. Couple things we didn't get to today that I wish we could have, but we'll obviously try to hit those next time. But we're gonna just jump into our favorite segment, which is our last segment, which is the C-squared moment of the day. Before we do that, remember, if you're watching, to like and subscribe to our channel. We love to see your comments as well, and we love interacting with our fans. So yeah, we're gonna do our C-squared moment of the day. We're gonna start things off with Prison Mike. What is your C-squared moment of the day?
All right, my C-squared moment of the day is today, and hopefully this fact is correct, but I believe that this Friday we don't have school because it's a holiday, and I did not know that we had this holiday, and so now I don't have to go to a physics lab on Friday, and it's pretty much a long weekend, so that will be exciting. I'm really when I learned that today, I was really excited, so I'm looking forward to the weekend already.
Brady?
Oh, my C-squared moment of the day. I'm going to go with something this weekend as well, but it's not the fact that we don't have school. I'm actually going to be able to golf this weekend for the first time since October, and I am so stoked, so excited. I can barely put it into words. I'm ready for some golf.
Is Star Valley's golf course open?
No, not Star Valley. I think I'm going to play here.
Oh.
There's still snow in Star Valley. There's no way that thing's open.
Yeah. So my C-squared moment of the day is actually this weekend. Gonna get the opportunity to spend it at my in-laws' house with family, and I always like Easter, and obviously, everything that it signifies. I've actually been really looking forward to Easter for a while. My dog's going crazy right now. Can you hear Josie?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got this. Also, excited to watch the wrestling team this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Wrestlers
Saturday.
are going to be holding the regional tournament. Really excited to be able to help out there, and wish them the best of luck. But yeah, we're going to sign off. Thanks for everybody that was watching and listening to us. Please like and subscribe. We have more content on the way. We'll get back to you guys later this week. Looking forward to it. So signing off, this is Crimson Comment.
Lazy Snake.
And Prison Mike.
And remember,
K.
J.